Hello everyone, and welcome to my CBS BNB Full Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Carter can't stay to marry Daphne, and Elektra learns Dylan's alone with Will again and San Francisco. Elektra and Steffi rave over how successful the box show has been so far. Elektra feels bad that Ivy's sick and is missing out. Steffi is enjoying spending time with her. Elektra loved watching her masterwork The Room. Finn calls Steffi and tells her that he got called in to work on an exigency, but he dropped Hayes off with Will and Dylan. Elektra's jaw drops. Steffi offers to come home, but her hubby assures her their son is in great hands. At the sand house, Will and Dylan are amusing Hayes with paper bag dollies. The Sprat asks about Elektra, which prompts Dylan to try and move Hayes to come hang out in her room. The boy wants to stay there. Will assures Dylan, it's forfeiture. Elektra will understand that they're just child sitting. As they get out snacks, Will takes a call from Elektra. He puts her on speakerphone so Hayes can say hello to Steffi. After, Dylan takes the phone and tells Elektra she's sorry. She knows she wanted her to stay in the guest house. Elektra tells her she understands, but suddenly asks to speak to Will again after decoupling. It's clear Elektra is unnerved, but she and Steffi are joined by a special buyer, Dottie, and her adjunct Joseph. Steffi presents Dottie with an exclusive choker, which Joseph puts on her neck and admires. Oh honey, she ate and left no motes. Dottie will take it. Carter's vision in the Forrester exchange. Carter and Daphne make out after he samples her new, intoxicating scent. As he teases that hearts are broken each over Paris, Daphne tells him constantly how important she loves him. They go over how lucky they are, and Carter lists off all of the awful effects he envisions for them, including her holding their gorgeous child. Daphne admits, it's a beautiful sight. They go back to kissing. He can't stay to make her his woman. The final scenes after a check-in call from Finn. Hayes roughhouses with Will and leverages Dylan. He wishes he could see her every day. Will winks at Dylan as he muses, perhaps you have a little crush on her. Dylan opens up to Will, telling him why she loves kitties and about not coming from a fat family. She doesn't want her mama to know she's floundering, but mentions she tutored her how to dance. Will and Hayes want to see, but Dylan doesn't suppose it would be applicable, perhaps latterly. In San Francisco, Elektra and Steffi toast to their successful trip. Steffi gets a textbook from Finn letting her know Hayes is still at Will's and senses Elektra's apprehension. The youthful woman admits she asked Dylan to stay down from Will after they participated a teriyaki funk regale together. Steffi feels bad, but Elektra is sure she can trust Dylan. At the sandhouse, Dylan and Will pierce Hayes, and Dylan gazes at Will. Hayes may not be the only one with a crush. The Verity had a way of staying until the exact moment it could beget the most damage, and in Los Angeles, secrets no way stayed buried for long. Carter Walton had erected his life on control, of law, of fidelity, of himself. He believed in order, in rules, in the idea that if you lived actually enough, the history could no way come back to resort you. That belief shattered the moment Daphne walked into his world again, carrying a secret heavy enough to crush everything he allowed. He knew about himself. Daphne had always was on the edge of Carter's memory, a chapter he believed was unrestricted long agone. She wasn't just another woman from his history. She was a turning point, a memorial of a youngish Carter who formerly made a reckless choice fueled by emotion rather than sense. Back also, their connection burned bright and fast, the kind of relationship that felt too violent to last. When it ended, Carter induced himself it was for the stylish. He moved on, erected a reputed career at Forrester Creations, and came the man everyone trusted to fix problems, not produce them. Daphne faded, and with her, any moping questions about what might have been. But Daphne had no way truly left the story. When she returned to Los Angeles, she didn't come back still. There was a pressure in her presence, a heaviness in her eyes that incontinently unsettled Carter. She wasn't there for nostalgia or check. She was there because time had run out. For times, she had lived with a Verity that demanded silence, raising a child on her own while guarding him from a reality she believed would only complicate his life. She told herself she was doing the right thing. She told herself Carter was better off not knowing. But secrets age poorly, and this bone had reached its breaking point. Carter tasted commodity was wrong long before the words were spoken. Daphne's jest was careful, nearly subdued, as if she were holding back an earthquake. The way she watched him, studied him, wasn't the look of an old honey reconsidering recollections, it was the look of someone measuring the moment that would change everything. Carter, ever the attorney, tried to approach the situation logically, asking questions, searching for clarity. But this wasn't a legal matter. This was particular in the most ruinous way possible. The disclosure came not as a dramatic laugh but as a controlled, deliberate verity, spoken with the weight of times behind it. Daphne didn't soften it. She didn't delay it. She delivered it with futurity. The child she had raised alone, the boy whose actuality Carter had no way known about, wasn't just connected to him in some abstract way. He was his son. The impact of those words gurgled through Carter's entire life in a moment. For a man who flattered himself on emotional discipline, Carter unraveled internally. Every memory, every decision he'd ever made suddenly felt deficient, erected on missing information. A son meant missed birthdays, missed first way, missed moments that could no way be recovered. It meant that while Carter was busy being the moral center at Forrester Creations, a part of his life had been lived without him entirely. The consummation didn't just shock him, it lowered him. How could someone as careful as Carter Walton have been barred from commodity so abecedarian? Daphne's concession didn't come with defenses, but it did come with pain. She hadn't kept the secret out of malignancy. She had done it out of fear. Fear that Carter's demanding life would leave no room for a child. Fear that the power dynamics of his world would swallow her and her son whole. Fear that involving him would only lead to disappointment. Over time, fear turned into habit, and habit turned into silence. By the time she realized Carter merited the verity, times had formerly slipped down. Carter's desolation snappily evolved into wrathfulness, not just toward Daphne, but toward himself. He questioned every belief he'd about responsibility and motherhood. He'd always imagined that if he ever came a father, it would be purposeful, planned, done the right way. Rather, motherhood had been decided for him long agone, without his knowledge or concurrence. The irony was cruel. The man who advised others on honesty and responsibility had been denied both. The fallout didn't stop with Carter. Once the verity began to surface, its shockwaves spread through the Forrester circle like campfire. Secrets of this magnitude no way stay private for long, especially in a world where fidelity is constantly tested. Carter's associates noticed the change in him incontinently. The composed, reliable attorney was suddenly detracted, emotionally distant, and visibly shaken. Tales began. Questions followed. And soon, the verity hovered to come out whether Carter was ready or not. For Carter, the most painful part wasn't just discovering he'd a son, it was realizing that his child had grown up believing someone differently, or no bone. At each was his father. The idea that his son might begrudge him, or worse, feel nothing toward him, visited Carter relentlessly. He wanted answers, but he also stressed them. Reaching out could open injuries that no way healed. Staying down would mean repeating the same mistake each over again. Daphne, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. Revealing the verity didn't free her. It exposed her to judgment from every angle. Some would see her as defensive, others as manipulative. She knew she couldn't control the narrative once the secret was out. All she could do was stand by the verity and accept whatever consequences followed. What she hadn't anticipated was how deeply the disclosure would fracture Carter's sense of tone. The child at the center of the storm remained ignorant of the chaos girding his identity, and that fact alone tore Carter piecemeal. He wasn't just dealing with the once, he was gaping down a future filled with query. How do you step into a child's life after times of absence without causing further detriment? How do you claim a part you were no way given the chance to earn? As days passed, Carter plotted to serve typically. Legal missions went unlettered. Meetings blurred together. His connections suffered as he withdrew inward, consumed by questions with no easy answers. The man who formerly believed the law could break anything now faced a problem with no legal remedy. This was about emotion, trust, and time, three effects no contract could restore. The disclosure also forced Carter to reevaluate his own knowledge and the assignments that shaped him. He wondered whether history was repeating itself in ways he no way intended. Had fate been guiding him toward this moment each along? Or had a single choice times agone set everything in stir? The weight of that possibility was nearly unsupportable. Daphne, watching Carter helical, questioned whether telling the verity had been the right decision after all. But deep down, she knew secrets like this only spoilage with time. Their son merited honesty, indeed if it came late. Carter merited the chance to choose the kind of father he wanted to be, indeed if the occasion arrived times after it should have. The stunner didn't just destroy Carter's peace, it disassembled his precisely constructed identity. He was no longer just the trusted counsel or the moral compass of Forrester Creations. He was a father who had no way held his child, a man forced to defy a life he didn't know he was missing. And as the verity continued to spread, one thing came clear: nothing in Carter Walton's world would ever be the same again. This disclosure wasn't the end of the story, it was the morning of a reckoning that would test love, remission, and the veritably description of family. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, secrets always come at a price, and this one demanded everything Carter allowed. He was. The days following Daphne's disclosure unfolded like a slow-moving disaster, the kind that gave no warning enchantresses because the damage had formerly begun. Carter tried to maintain his routine, but the structure he reckoned on to survive pressure no longer worked. Every familiar hallway at Forrester Creations felt altered, as if the walls themselves, new commodity monumental, had changed. He walked once associates who smiled at him, ignorant that his entire understanding of his life had been ripped piecemeal. Carter answered emails, attended meetings, and reviewed contracts, yet none of it registered. His body went through the movements while his mind stayed trapped in a single ruinous verity: he was a father, and he'd been absent for his child's entire life. At night, sleep abandoned him fully. The silence of his apartment came unsupportable. Carter had always valued solitariness as a space for reflection and calm, but now it felt chastising. He goggled at the ceiling for hours, imagining a child growing up without him. Academy days, scraped knees, birthdays blown out without a father standing hard. Each imagined moment felt like another blameworthiness. He'd believed himself to be a good man, someone who showed up for others. Now he wondered if that belief had been nothing further than an accessible vision. Daphne, on the other hand, endured a different kind of torment. Telling Carter the verity had taken times of internal debate, but once the words were spoken, she realized how little control she had over what came next. Carter's response visited her. Not wrathfulness alone, but desolation so profound it framed on collapse. She hadn't wanted to destroy him. She had wanted honesty. Yet honesty came with wreckage. Daphne questioned every choice she had made since discovering she was pregnant. She flashed back the fear that had consumed her also, the certainty that Carter's demanding world would swallow her and her child total. Back also, guarding her son had meant guarding him from heartache. Now, protection looked like a taradiddle that had lasted far too long. As the verity dallied between them, the implied question grew louder: what would be coming? Carter wanted answers about their son, about his life, about who he'd come. But with every answer came new pain. Learning details about a child you should have known privately felt like studying a foreigner's memoir. Carter absorbed data with paining intensity, learning them as if reiteration could ever make up for lost time. But the gap remained wide and unbridgeable. Meanwhile, the pressure at Forrester Creations boosted. Carter's emotional distance didn't go unnoticed. People who depended on his immutability began to worry. Tales circulated still at first, enterprise blooming in the absence of information. In this world, secrets were currency, and Carter's silence only increased the value of whatever he was hiding. It was only a matter of time before someone connected the blotches between Daphne's unforeseen presence and Carter's unraveling. The situation grew indeed more complicated when Daphne revealed that their son was curious, asking questions she could no longer redirect. Children, she explained, sense the verity long before grown-ups are ready to admit it. Carter plotted with that knowledge utmost of all. The idea that his son might formerly feel commodity missing, commodity that was him, cut deeper than any blameworthiness ever could. For the first time in his life, Carter felt helpless. The law had always given him structure, rules, and boundaries. Fatherhood offered none of those. There was no guidebook for how to step into a child's life without shattering it further. Carter began to scuffle with the possibility that revealing the verity to his son might do further detriment than good. What if his presence only disintegrated a stable life? What if the boy begrudged him for times of absence? These fears disaccorded violently with another Verity. Choosing to stay down would mean repeating Daphne's mistake, prioritizing comfort over honesty. Carter was forced to defy the reality that doing the right thing frequently meant walking straight into pain. Daphne, too, faced judgment, both internal and external. Once the secret hovered to come out, she realized how snappily narratives form in the Forrester route. Some would see her as manipulative, others as selfish. Veritably, many would understand the fear that drove her choices. She prepared herself to be painted as the villain in Carter's story, knowing that Verity and blame infrequently attend peacefully. Yet despite her fear, she refused to lament, telling him the taradiddle had formerly taken enough from both of them. As pressure mounted, Carter set up himself, reflecting on the man he'd worked so hard to become. His character was erected on fairness, integrity, and responsibility. Ironically, those veritably values now demanded that he face a reality he was scarified of embracing. He could endorse honesty for others while avoiding it in his own life, however. Also, he'd to defy his son not as a rescuer or an idol, but as someone willing to admit failure, if he was truly the man he believed himself to be. The emotional strain began to affect Carter physically. His typically sharp focus dulled, his tolerance weakened, and cracks formed in connections he formerly handled with ease. The people around him tasted commodity was deeply wrong, indeed if they didn't yet understand why. Carter, once the calm in every storm, had come the storm itself. And storms formerly formed infrequently stayed contained. When Carter eventually allowed himself to imagine meeting his son, the feelings overwhelmed him. He wondered what the boy would see when he looked at him. A foreigner, a disappointment, or commodity familiar he couldn't explain. Carter questioned whether blood alone was enough to claim the title of father. Love, presence, and time signified more, and he'd missed out on all three. The consummation forced him to defy a painful Verity. Biology created the bond, but responsibility defined it. Daphne watched Carter struggle with quiet empathy. She had carried this burden alone for so long that participating it felt both relieving and frightening. She stressed that formerly Carter completely reused the Verity. He might walk down, not out of atrocity but out of fear. That possibility frightened her further than judgment ever could. Despite everything, she had always believed Carter was a good man. Now she demanded him to prove it, not for her sake, but for their sons. As the days turned into weeks, the secret continued to hang exposure. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, Verity always shells, frequently in the most destructive way possible. Carter knew that if he didn't take control of the narrative, it would control him. The choice before him was clear but agonizing: remain silent and save the vision of stability, or step forward and accept the chaos that honesty would bring. The stunner Daphne dropped had formerly destroyed the life Carter allowed. He knew. What remained was the possibility of rebuilding commodity, new, commodity, honest, defective, and deeply mortal. But rebuilding needed courage, and courage demanded immolation. As Carter stood at the edge of a future he no way anticipated, one thing was inarguable: the Verity had changed everything, and there was no turning back. And nearly ignorant of the emotional earthquake girding him, Carter's son continued living his life, on the point of a disclosure that would review his identity ever. When that moment came, it would not only test Carter's strength as a man but determine whether broken trust could ever be healed. The pressure refused to ease, settling rather into every corner of Carter's life like a shadow that followed him no matter where he went. Indeed, moments of quiet came loaded with meaning, because silence now carried the weight of everything unsaid. Carter set up himself standing at a crossroads he no way imagined, one where every possible path felt wrong in a different way. To step forward meant facing rejection and pain. To step back meant condemning himself to a continuance of remorse. Neither option offered comfort, only consequence. What visited him most was the consummation that time, formerly lost, could no way be reclaimed. He could make a future, but the history would always remain deficient. That knowledge forced Carter to review what responsibility truly meant. It was no longer about legal obligation or moral proposition, it was about showing up when fear screamed at him to run. For the first time, Carter understood that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the amenability to act in malignancy of it. Daphne tasted the shift in him before he spoke a single word about it. She saw it in the way he heeded more precisely, In the way his questions changed from protective to deliberate. The wrathfulness was still there, but beneath it grew commodity additional determination. Carter was no longer just replying.